There is a very famous dialogue from a very famous movie. आप excellence के पीछे भागो, success तो झक मार के आपके पीछे चली आएगी. But we have always listened this dialogue from a student's perspective. This is everything is applicable to a student. But do you think this can also be applicable to a college? Well, it can be. Because colleges have to run behind excellence because they are delivering excellence, they are delivering education. So there has to be somebody who is monitoring that whether this particular college is actually delivering what they are promising. If there is no police, then nobody will actually do the right thing. And the body which actually takes care, which makes sure that a college is driving excellence, they are running behind excellence and delivering what they are promising, it's called as the body of accreditations. Well, the body of accreditations, NAC, NBA, NRF, they are always taken as so difficult, so complicated. But is it really that complicated? Is it really that difficult? Well, statistics say that 65% Indian colleges do not have a good accreditation. But that doesn't really mean that it is difficult. Maybe the way we are looking at accreditations might not be the right way to look at it. So we are on a mission of making accreditation simpler. And by simpler, we mean that we want to tell people how to actually think about accreditations. Hence today we have somebody with us who has great amount of experience in accreditations like NBA, like AACSB and much more. So I would like to introduce Dr. Pratima Sheorey ma'am. A quick introduction about her is that she has around 25 to 30 years of experience in education, out of which predominantly she has been the director of SCM HRD, which is a symbiosis group of institutions. She has been a HOD there, she has been a director there, and she has been a part of AACSB accreditations, NBA accreditations, and has of course successfully delivered it to her institute. So it is my pleasure and Team Studium's pleasure to have Pratima ma'am on the board of advisory. And today we have a great pleasure to ask her some questions regarding accreditations. So let's get started. So ma'am, welcome to this podcast. So the first very obvious questions. So why are accreditations so important? Everybody's talking about them. What is exactly about accreditations?
Whenever you talk about anything, benchmarking is very important. Right? There's a whole bunch of stakeholders there. There is industry that is going to absorb those students that are going to come out. There are students who wish to enroll in the programs. Then there are faculty who would want to join those institutions, and the institutions themselves that want to grow and become bigger. How do you know what pathway to take? How do you know what is the right way to do it? A lot of educational institutions that are at the top today have began where they began, but they have matured and moved up and become better today. So accreditations are something that enable you to get a benchmark, okay, to get to that better place in a quicker turnaround or a quicker timeline. That is why accreditations are extremely important. And today the government, because of the National Education Policy 2020 and overall the fact that India's soft power will be driven by the students or by the youth with the right kind of talent. Therefore, they've put a lot of quality benchmarks all around it, also lots of control around it, which tells people what is the right path to follow. And so accreditations are important because they tell you if you are on that path, if you're not, then how far, and what can you do to get onto it and become better. So it's good for business, it's good for learning, it's good for the students, it's good for branding. In all ways, that is the right thing to do.
Great. And the faculty, which is the key stakeholder behind everything. When I talk to faculties, they think that it's an additional responsibility on us because fundamentally that is what happens on ground. So when a college has to go for NAC, NBA, NRF rankings, AACSB, and the faculty has to do it, how should a faculty look at everything at a fundamental quality framework?
I agree completely that it adds a lot of very mundane documentation job, which the faculty hate. They'd much rather probably be teaching in class, doing some research, or completing some evaluations or something like that. So this seems like an additional burden. There are three ways to look at it. First, if you know how good you are, where you are, what is your level, only then you will be able to improve on it. Right? Nobody is perfect. Even the best faculty is not perfect. So the first thing for them is their own self-improvement. If you participate in an accreditation process, it tells you whether you're teaching right, whether you are evaluating right, whether you're looking for the right kind of things. All of that is important. Okay? So for them to improve themselves. Second, even for the institution, if they have to know where they are and how far they have to travel, don't we write down, if you want to control our expenses, don't we write down and record on a daily basis how much I am spending? If I don't know what I am doing, and if I'm not measuring what I'm doing, then how far can I go? And any institution that does well is a place that most faculty want to be in, right? Accreditations by their very nature, because they are strategic, because they are something that impacts the way students will learn and they will be evaluated, because that's the workforce, that is what India is going to be. So given all of that, the responsibility on faculty is tremendous. How should they look at faculty? How should faculty look at it? I'm sorry. If faculty have to look at what they are doing, how they are doing, and how it makes sense for them, it's just about doing your job in a much more refined and scientific way. That's how the faculty should look at it. And it's like any teacher loves to go and teach in class, but if you talk about the evaluations, if you talk about the assessments, they become a little boring. And we enjoy talking in front of the class. But it's like the rest of the iceberg, right? When you go and stand and prepare for that 1 hour class, there is just so much more that you do before that, such that that 1 hour is the most stellar performance. So that's
Correct.
why it is important for faculty.
Correct. So when we talk about any reputed accreditations, whatever I have understood, we cannot really compare one institute to another. It has to be a self-assessment. So technically, we are comparing ourselves with a version of me minus 5 years or me versus 3 years. So when we do this, it becomes very important for an institute to set its vision, to set its target. And so what are your comments on it? How important is it first? And what are the right ways of doing it?
Extremely important. Vision setting is probably the most important exercise that any institution, especially any educational institution, should be doing. If you look at the way NBA is structured or AACSB is structured, they give primary importance to the strategic plan and the vision setting. Okay. Unfortunately, or whatever, maybe because of lack of a better way to do it, we make our visions very grand. I want to be the best. How do you define the best? How will you know if you've become the best? Right? So it's very critical to set a vision which is grand, but not so grand that you will never ever achieve it, or not so grand that you can't ever measure it. So a good vision is something that you can aspire for maybe in the long term, let's say 5 years. Okay? Mission is short-term goals, which will help you to achieve that vision. If you look at our standard NBA guideline, vision followed by mission. So based on the vision, you will formulate your mission strategy. And this is something that the leadership has to do. After taking, of course, after looking at all the stakeholders and taking their consent as well. You set the missions. Missions are statements, which is what will I achieve in 2 years. Let's say you're looking at becoming maybe top 10 in NIRF. Okay. You want to be the best. So break it down into something that you can do. Vision, top 10 in NIRF. So mission, what are the key parameters in NIRF? How will you achieve them? So your missions should start to drive that. Program educational outcomes are almost like defining the graduate outcomes. So you must know what your graduates will be when they will pass out of your institution. Based on that, your program outcomes, your program specific outcomes. Based on that, your course outcomes. So the course outcome, when you achieve the course outcome, that is when you will eventually, in steps, achieve the vision. It should be something that you plan to do, not just something that is on the horizon. So vision setting is extremely critical and crucial, and every faculty, just rewinding back to the previous question where you asked me about why it is important for the faculty. So the faculty is not just teaching any one particular subject. What they're doing is aiding that institution to achieve that grand vision of producing a certain type of graduate. And how does their course, how does each one of their assessment, you're not just another hole in the wall or a brick in the wall. You're going to be a part of that entire edifice. So you should be able to contribute to that. You should know where I am headed, not just walk anyway or anywhere, but have a direction. Therefore, accreditation, therefore the right kind of vision, and therefore a strategic plan that drives that vision. You may have a grand vision. Have you put the resources, a timeline behind it? Walk the talk. That's what vision is about.
So typically we are saying that we should be making the vision or anything that we plan, we should be making it more measurable.
Yes.
So
yes.
can we have an example of a vision statement or a mission statement that is good but not measurable, and something that is good but measurable?
Yeah, that's what. So we want to be the best educational institution. Very good. Too grandiose. So how will I know where I go? Do you therefore want to say you want to be the best educational institution in maybe a particular state, a particular country, a particular geography? And what do you want to be good in? You can't be good in everything. Right? Do you want to be better at employability? Do you want to be better at research maybe? Do you want to be better at maybe driving sustainability, diversity, inclusion? So add these operative words. These operative words will define your mission and therefore will also show up in your program outcomes. So what is very grand, very nice, it sounds great. We want to be the best, we want to be the top, we want to be, produce the most employable graduates. What do you mean by the most employable graduates? So define that.
Correct.
Right. So broadly,
Yeah.
I hope I answered your question.
So I have this, I can remember sometimes from my childhood and even from my engineering days where we all used to say that why are we learning this subject? And I'm going to do something else in my life. Why are we learning mathematics? Why are we learning physics? So when I started learning about outcome-based education, this typically was happening because we did not have the why behind what we are learning. So can you help us understand that, if there is outcome-based education in an institute, how would a student be delivered education versus there is no outcome-based education just happening?
So a lot of us have felt, right? Famous songs also on it, right? ऐसी लाइन याद आ रही, सिकंदर ने पोरस से की थी लड़ाई, जो की थी लड़ाई तो मैं क्या करूं? Right? So yes, what am I going to do with that information? How is the student going to demonstrate that information? And therefore, outcome-based education in NBA, assurance of learning in AACSB. These are key parameters. Of course, assurance of learning is quite mature now because that's a 100-year-old accreditation. But what it essentially and effectively means is that when the graduate comes out of the institution, what is it that the graduate should exhibit, show, and be able to do? What you want them to show and do is what you will have to teach them, which means what is the outcome? Based on that, therefore, what will be the input? What will be the process to give the input? So how you will instruct, how you will deliver the instruction, and how you will assess if the learning has taken place or not. So direct, indirect measures, directly through marks, indirectly through projects, other scoring or marking that you can take based on some other stakeholder reacting to it. So those kind of things become very important. Unless and until, and all of this, by the way, according to what NBA is saying, is you will have to show this and give this to the student, right? What is your syllabus? What is the program outcome? What is the course outcome? The student will therefore see it and know how it adds overall in terms of whatever education that you're doing. What is the purpose of this particular subject, right? Some subjects like mathematics, for example, may not have a direct application in maybe management. But to understand managerial principles, you yet need mathematics. You yet need to understand how people think, because you want to be able to manage those people. So therefore, knowing where you are coming from, what is the reason why you're teaching what you're teaching. Example of somewhere where people just don't think about it is 10 topics, I go and teach those 10 topics. Today, that doesn't work today, because the student is very aware. This is not the age of the sage on the stage. Okay? The teachers today are facilitators, are mediators. So you connect the learning or the subject with the application and tell the student about that. Then they can implement it. If they understand this entire process, then their involvement, their ability to absorb that learning also improves.
Correct.
Right? So very crucial to do that.
Correct. So this brings me to one of my favorite questions, that a lot of my friends are in the US right now, settled there. They went to the US because they said that the education there is better and the exposure there is better. And of course, I'm not denying the fact. But they also said that the same kind of education, same kind of way of teaching, everything, the entire approach is very different in India. So exactly what is different? And you have been, I'm aware about it, you are also a teaching faculty in some international institutes. So what is different? When you say the approach is different?
Approach is different is they are very, very practically oriented, which means whatever subject you teach, how is it going to be implemented? Okay, case studies is something that a lot of faculty in India are probably not very comfortable with, though I'm seeing a change in the way faculty approach, and all because of these accreditations. They are forcing experiential learning, they are forcing employability oriented learning, right? So yes, that's also why accreditations are important, because sometimes we just don't realize it, and you are a new institution, so you don't know what some of the best people have done. What are the best practices? That's one way to learn that best practice. Coming to a question of how are those institutions better? More practice, more case-based learning, more hands-on learning, not a one-way street, it's an interactive discussion. Because the student today is as aware, sometimes more, in certain areas than the faculty. So if you can utilize that peer learning, if you can utilize the insight that that student has, it'll make your teaching learning much better.
Yeah.
So that's the basic difference. But I think if you look at some of the better ranked institutions in India also, you will see the same practices. Okay, so those students come out just being different. So I know of a lot of institutions now that are insisting on project-based learning, on internship-based learning, those kind of things. So yeah. I think things are changing in India too.
So we can typically say that the institute who is following outcome-based education to its core,
yes,
the students who will graduate and come to the industry might have a better way of applying what they've learned.
Yes.
They might have the stronger sense of why I have learned this.
Yes.
So that will be the good things when a student comes out of it.
They also know where to apply.
Yeah.
Because if they've been taken through practical situations, real life situations, or where that learning has been applied, when they see a similar situation, then they'll apply it.
Yeah. So in this entire shift of, probably we can say that the Western education is 20 years ahead than us, and we are a growing nation, and we are marching towards a developed economy. In this, a faculty again becomes a delivery agent of education.
Yes.
And whatever reforms are there, whatever is happening, it's finally on his or her shoulders to actually deliver it. Now, there are two approaches that I've always seen. One is a faculty who is great at teaching, who can explain, who can express really well, but not very much into research. And someone who is very much into research and then delivering. So, what does research and why is it so important? Or should a faculty have an approach of research and then teach? What are your thoughts on it?
So this is an example I've discussed with you
Yeah.
as well in the past, and I'm going to quote that right now, which is a textbook that a faculty is using today. Okay, faculty who's great at teaching has a gift of the gab, the ability to connect with the audience and explain to them what it is, and the students come out saying, "Wow, whatever this faculty taught me is fitted into my head, and I will be able to reproduce this in whatever different type of situation that I may face." Now, while this is true, but the textbooks from which people are teaching today were research papers. So textbook you see today, there's at least a couple of years of research that goes into it before you're writing, putting it all together and all those kind of things. So maybe a year ago, so let's say a book published in 2024, okay, was compiled at least a year ago. Okay, because after that the proofing, all those processes take place. So 23 is probably when it was compiled. If it was compiled in 23, then it's got 2 years of research papers that were published before, the concepts that were published before. That is what is reflected in that. So you're already looking at concepts that were probably done sometime in 21 or 22. Okay, good research papers from where some of these better books pick up their material. Any faculty here worth anything will know that the moment you look at A quality or a B quality or a triple star or an FT kind of a paper, that takes anywhere between 3 to 5 years to publish, from writing to actual publishing, including the review. So something that was published in 21 or 22 was probably first submitted, or the research on that was done at least 3 years before that. So you're looking at 2019, 2018. Book you're seeing in 2024 is work that was done in 2018 and 19. So you're already 5 years behind. Unless and until you yourself are going to the market or to the context in which you're teaching to pick up that information. So research is not just to, check the box in terms of, okay, so many papers in Scopus or UGC Care done. No. You have to do research that is relevant to what you're teaching and what you're doing. So only then will that teaching learning be relevant, because it will be the latest. Today there is nothing that you can give, and ChatGPT and OpenAI and all the AI assistants. There are AI assistants even for research, scholarly research. So if you have the access to it, the students have the access to it before you. In fact, they are better off at using it. If that is what it is, imagine they already know what is the latest. How can you teach from something that is old? So if you have to keep pace, then you have to do research.
Okay.
You have to go and speak to the students. You can't pick up a research paper done by somebody else and teach based on that. That is not your knowledge. You're simply recycling. And today, a lot of these AI assistants can put together a good PPT if you put, 4 input documents into it.
Correct.
So, no, you have to do research. It's very, very relevant. Teaching, though, is a skill, and it takes a little while. But it's not rocket science. If you really prepare well, the students see
Correct.
good preparation. If you've looked at the outcomes you want and you've designed your entire teaching learning process and assessment process in that manner, you can yet do well.
Yeah. So actually, if you see an ideal faculty, he should be having good knowledge,
Yes,
should be able to deliver that knowledge,
yes,
should go in the market and do research,
Yes.
should go in the industry and work, get the knowledge back, compile it, process it, make it simpler for the students, and then again deliver it.
correct.
So actually-
and plus, if they are participating in any accreditation,
Also-
do the additional documentation for it.
Yeah. So we are looking at a superhuman who actually has to do this all.
Yes.
Yeah, great. So now technically we are saying that it's a journey of every faculty being a super faculty and a superhuman. So I mean, in practical world, what's the secret sauce for any faculty to now be a superhuman?
Yeah. We went through a lot of roles that they have. In all of these, you've forgotten their personal lives.
Yeah.
So,
If
therefore,
they have
yes.
any.
No, they all have.
Yeah.
And till 8-10 years ago, it was a different story. But I think in the last 2-3 years, technology has become a big enabler. Today, if people choose to use technology, then a lot of the mundane tasks it's a lot of drudgery that technology can actually do for you. Okay, including using assessments that can be done online, including compiling your marks that can be done online, including looking at preparing reports. So once you've done the assessments, you've entered the marks, you don't have to do all the other calculations. It'll pull out a report for you. If you've put it into a document, then it can also convert it into a PPT.
Yeah.
You can look up cases. You can look at examples from across the world. So all of these things which will aid you to do better. Okay, instead of having to do everything manually and physically, I think unless you are tech enabled, there's
Yeah.
little hope. You will never get out of office at all. An office will arrive at home. That I can tell you is not a good combination to have.
Yeah, great. So basically, this is a journey of a faculty transforming into a great faculty of being tech enabled.
Yes,
Yeah.
and every faculty can be a great faculty.
Great, great. Thank you, ma'am. Thanks for this enlightening session. And I also we have actually spoken about it a lot of times, but it is good to bring it on a podcast. And this is our first podcast of what we are doing. So thanks a
Great.
lot. And I am pretty sure that all the people who are listening to us will get something to learn out of this.
I'm sure they will, and I'm sure they can reach back to you or to
Yeah.
me, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.